Welcome to the Becoming a Pilot podcast, where we share first-hand experiences, practical advice, and insights from pilots at every stage of their journey. I'm your host, Dave Angus, and whether you're just starting out or working towards your next rating, we're here to help you navigate the path to becoming a pilot. So buckle up, stay tuned, and let's talk all things aviation.
This podcast is brought to you by Genesis Flight College, Canada's premier flight center. With an advanced fleet of Diamond aircraft and experienced instructors, Genesis Flight College provides top-tier training in the heart of southern Georgian Bay. Ready to start your journey to becoming a pilot? Inquire today.
Welcome back to another episode of Becoming a Pilot podcast. Today we're actually going to change it up a little bit. We're going to chat just about kind of our stories that have kind of built us into the pilots that we are today. We always say that with flying, like there's hours and then there's experience. So this is kind of the experience podcast. And the nice thing about that is that people can learn off of our mistakes, right? We've screwed up, so you don't have to.
Yeah.
So we'll start with you. I'll let you embarrass yourself first, and then I'll go second and embarrass myself to finish it off.
Okay. Sounds like a plan. I don't really have anything to share.
Oh,
I mean, there's no
perfect.
Yeah, no. So yeah, early on in my training, one of the issues that I had was going solo to Muskoka.
Okay.
So yeah, practicing the cross-country procedures. So everything was going good initially in the flight. Got my checkpoints, ground speed checks are all done. Everything's going good.
Perfect.
Up until a point where it kind of quickly started to fall apart. And that was when, I was getting close to the zone. So, I tune in the ATIS, I get the information, and then I try to make that initial call to Timmins radio. And I tune in the station, and then I'm listening, and there's a ton of traffic inbound. There's traffic in the circuit, and so I'm trying to make that call. I'm trying to get the first call out, and I just can't. And I keep getting stepped on, or I'm stepping on somebody else, and so I actually got the call out, and they said stand by. So I'm like, okay, but I just kept continuing on into the zone, and then they finally came back, and there's give me position, all that. So I'll give it to them, and they're like, hey, Roger, call when you're into the zone, once you enter the zone. So then a couple moments go by, probably about 2 minutes or less, and I said I'm in the zone, and they're like, I thought you said you were 5 minutes out. And then I'm like, yeah, I was trying to make a call. I couldn't get a hold of you, so I just continued on. In hindsight, I should have just did an orbit and waited outside the zone, and then continued in once I made established radio contact. And then I realized that afterwards, my mistake. But that was my very first Cador. So.
Oh, geez, yeah.
Yeah. So.
It happens. I don't think you can go. Well, it'd be pretty tough to go through a career without having a mistake, right?
Yeah.
So.
And it was kind of like, obviously a learning experience, but I didn't really know what a Cador was up until that point. And then I was like, is that going to be like a stain on my record? Are airlines going to look at that and be like,
they don't know who you are.
Yeah, look at these mistakes.
It's the airplane's fault.
Yeah, so exactly. So it's especially important to realize that a Cador isn't necessarily to place blame on somebody or to target them in any way. It's a learning experience. So I sat down with the CFI and we discussed what had happened, because obviously, it's issued to the plane, not an individual. Right. So then they just look at the logs. They say, okay, what plane was it? And they were flying it at this time when it was issued, and that person will just have a discussion with them so that it doesn't repeat itself in the future, right?
Sure.
And when I came back, admittedly, just went to my instructor and said, this is kind of what happened, and the ATC was a little upset or whatever. Tim's radio was a little upset with me, and then they explained this is the why or whatever, and I kind of knew why. So
did you actually talk to Timmins Radio afterwards? Have a discussion with them, or did they no?
He was just
from what was in the report.
Yeah, he was like, basically, you need to call 5 minutes ahead and let us know that you're inbound. And
right. I'm
like, yeah, okay, got it. And then I apologized and thought that was the end of it, and then. Got the Cador.
Then into the office you go.
Yeah.
You know what? That it happens. That's a pretty simple thing to happen, and a great learning experience, right? Especially when we fly out of a uncontrolled airport when we're not talking to air traffic control at all, or really ever. It can be really easy to make those little procedural errors when going into, well, I know it's a MF there that Timmins radio kind of controls, so to speak. But yeah, super easy to make those mistakes. I actually had a comm failure going into there and got, I don't know if I'd say in trouble. I just didn't even realize had a comm failure. And I think that's where my learning experience was. I was making radio calls, and I hadn't heard anything back. And this was during when COVID was going on, and there had been some situations where Timmins radio was closed. There was nobody there. And I thought that was one of those days. I'd made the mistake of not checking the NOTAMs. And so I went. And I'm making radio calls, and I was talking to people here. I knew my radio was working, and then I start getting towards there, and I make some more radio calls, and no one gets back. I make another radio call, and no one gets back to me. Like, all right. So then I just continued, and I made normal VFR uncontrolled calls, joined the circuit, landed, and as I land, I immediately, as soon as I touch down, I hear a guy on the radio go, "Yeah, he just touched down." And then I hear Timmins radio, and I was like, oh, what the heck? So then I make a radio call, and I guess what had happened is something had come loose in the back end, and I guess kind of wiggled back into place. So when I talked to them afterwards, they said that they heard me, but I didn't hear anything that they were saying.
Okay.
So that was good, I guess. But at the same time, I kind of wish I would have picked up on it. And as soon as I didn't hear anybody in return, I maybe should have gone back home and addressed the problem or troubleshoot it a little bit more.
Right.
As opposed to just kind of meandering in there and just doing what I wanted to do. Right. So the nice thing about us making these mistakes, like we said, is like we can pass that along to our students. That experience goes a long way, right?
Exactly. I've been fortunate enough that any of the issues that I've had flying aren't mechanical errors.
Right.
I think you have a story that you could share with regards to that, but most of mine have been pilot error. Right. So I had, a time where I oversped the flaps. On an overshoot from a forced approach, just forgot about putting the flaps up. And I think another time actually out of Kitchener, departing the circuit there, and busy. It was really busy at the time, and I was kind of overwhelmed with all the calls that were being made, and I was talking to
busy spot.
Yeah. So and then I just forgot to do my after takeoff checks, and I'm like climbing. Okay, I get to altitude. I'm like, why is the airspeed so low?
Right.
And I look down, like, to put the flaps up.
Yeah.
Put them up, and just acknowledging that happened, and then you realize, okay, did I overspeed them? Yes, I did. Okay, I'm gonna go when I get back and let maintenance know so they can take a look at it. Right. So,
and one thing I overheard students. This was a while, not too long ago, but I overheard a conversation where someone had said, "Oh yeah, like I oversped the flaps." It was only by a couple knots. It was only for a couple seconds, but it happened. And the students were saying, "Oh no, it's okay if it's over engineered. It's only a couple knots." That's not the right mentality in this, right? You want to if the flap speed is the flap speed and it goes over that, you want to get it checked, right?
Yeah, you're not a mechanic.
And it's also not like you're going in there and it's an admission to guilt and you're going to jail. Right.
Exactly.
You say, hey, this is what happened. It was only for a couple seconds. It was only by a couple knots. But this is what happened.
Yeah.
Allow them to inspect it.
Yeah.
Right. It's the one thing that in aviation or in anything is that lying will get you nowhere. It'll actually get you blacklisted.
Yeah. Out the door.
Whereas if you just own up to it and say, this is what happened, and maybe teach somebody about like what experience you had and how to fix it. So like I had to talk a little bit about mine. I had a stuck throttle.
Yeah.
I was really new in my training. Like I just got my PPL. So lots of things I would have done different. But I started to descend. Like I was going into my descent and I pulled the power back and I just didn't come back. Just stayed at cruise.
Yeah.
And then so continued in, flew. I tried to fix it, didn't do anything.
So the throttle itself came back, but
Yeah,
but the power stayed
just stayed
at cruise.
Yeah, exactly. And so then came around, shot the approach. So I was on final, and my plan was just pull mixture and dead stick land because I couldn't keep the speed down, right? And so I did that and learned really fast how much drag a windmilling prop gives.
Yeah.
Now, being new, and also I was just getting into constant speed prop at that time.
Okay.
I just didn't even think about like feathering.
Yeah.
And so I was like, oh, that's not good. So then because I wasn't going to make the runway, so I reintroduced the mixture. Power was still at a cruise power setting, came back around, and then just pulled the mixture closer to the ground. Pretty much just before I rounded out, I pulled it.
Yeah.
Used most of the runway, but it all ended up fine. Yeah. It was all good. But it was kind of the coolest takeaway from it was when we do forced approach training and we pull the throttle back, feels nothing like a windmilling prop.
Yeah.
Windmilling prop feels like you hit a brick wall and you're going down.
Right.
It's a lot of drag.
Yeah.
I've always known, like, they say a windmilling prop is like holding a sheet of metal the size of the prop right out in front of the airplane. Well, you don't really know what that feels like till you do it. So that was super interesting. Luckily, everything kind of worked out. I definitely could have dealt with it better, but it was fine. Ultimately, it ended up fine. Airplane was fine. Got it fixed. Move on. It could have been. I kind of learned from training. My instructor told me that about pulling the throttle. Right, we'd done some emergencies like during training, which were kind of cool, like a stuck elevator. So using the trim to come in and land. Yeah. Which was really cool training. And we'd simulated an engine failure, but we just pulled the power, right? We'd simulated a stuck throttle, but essentially when I was like, okay, we're gonna pull the mixture, he just pull the power back, type thing.
Okay.
So it was good. Like I kind of had a background of it, not in a constant speed world, but I had a little bit of a background knowledge, which I could rely on my training to think of that. But there's definitely some things I wasn't expecting.
Right. Yeah.
So,
no, that's really good. Good experience to have. I mean,
yeah.
Obviously, you want it to be successful and that you land it safely and everything. But those experiences are what build like good pilots, right?
Yeah.
Not having gone through your whole career and not ever experiencing any of these issues.
Right.
Occurring.
Right.
And then to share that experience with other people and so that they realize that it's real world.
It can happen. It's so rare. Like these, like all of general aviation, really all of aviation in general, like the engines and the mechanics behind it are pretty bulletproof. The amount of times a Lycoming engine fails you is pretty rare. Pretty rare. We hear about it more now because there's so much access to the information. But it's really like the amount of airplanes we see is such a small sample size in Canada. But you look at the States and how big general aviation is, how money, like now with ADS-B requirements, just go into flight awareness, see how many Cessnas and Diamonds and Cirrus are flying around and other GA aircraft, right? And they're not failing all the time. So it's very easy to go from zero to the end of your career and never really have a serious situation. That's right. That's more common than not, right? Yeah. So sometimes just living on the experiences of others, to be able to, well, what if this happens to me? What would I do to try to build that knowledge base? So now, moving forward, you can deal with those situations, and that's a nice thing with here. We have so many different instructors that come from different walks of life, right? We have ex-military pilots, we have ex-airline pilots, we have your traditional, like you and I, that went through flight training, had our own experiences. And all of us have had different unique experiences that we can then relay to the students to help them build that knowledge base. And the whole thing is to just keep building that up. So, God forbid they get in a situation where they have to use that knowledge, that they feel much more comfortable and more equipped. And I find that that's a real advantage that we have, is having that real eclectic group of people to lean on, right, to learn from.
Yeah.
I know you had another one coming into, what was it, London?
Yeah, heading inbound to London.
Actually, I really like this one because it really bridges the gap between like the uncontrolled going to controlled and the preconceptions that we have in uncontrolled versus controlled. So so the circuit procedure for this particular runway that aircraft were approaching and departing from was a right-hand circuit. So my first experience flying in an airport with a right-hand circuit, really no big deal. It's just you join, and once you're established, it's right-hand turns instead of left. So the controller, make my inbound call, and then they cleared me to join a left circuit, which kind of threw me off a bit because my whole time going in, I just like thought about where I'd be coming in and anticipated what clearance I was going to be given in sequence into the circuit. So when he gave me that, I was which is a good thing to do.
Yeah.
Always thinking about like, hey, what can I expect is going to come next, right?
Yeah. So then when he told me to fly overhead to join a left circuit, it kind of threw me off. Or he didn't even say that. He just said join left downwind. So I was like, okay, I got it.
I got this.
Read back.
I've been practicing this. Yeah.
And then I just couldn't get over like the thought process of how I was planning on joining versus what he was telling me. And I'm like, but it says it's a right circuit, so I have to join establish in a right circuit.
Overthinking it, really.
Yeah. So then I pass over the runway, or I was approaching the airport, and then he said, he called me out on it before it had happened. He's like, I don't see you turning yet. He's like, all right, take this, he gave me a vector. And I was like, okay, good. And he's like, I told you to join this way. And I'm like, apologies. I was like, I anticipated in my mind, I had something else figured out. And, he was understanding, but he was at the same time, he's like, if you don't understand the clearance, then you need to, you said that you're going to fly that, so you need to fly that way.
Yeah, of course. Well, it's all communication, right? It's all, if you accept something, you got to do it, or else he doesn't know what you're doing.
Yeah, exactly. So luckily he had eyes on me. It was pretty busy in there. So, but it caused him to just delay a circuit sequence for another aircraft. But overall, it wasn't like a near miss or anything. It was just I wasn't following the procedure that he had told me to follow. Right. And then I realized later on exactly, sat back after I got back and realized, okay, that makes total sense. Why he was frustrated because, So, that was a good experience.
Yeah, of course.
To have. Although I wish I didn't make the error of just follow his instructions as plainly as they were.
Like we've been saying though, like we're always going to make mistakes. Yeah. Every flight should have some sort of debrief. You take it even from the military, right? Like you have some of the best aviators in the world, let's say like fighter pilots or whatever, right? So the best trained, most meticulous pilots in the world. And after every single flight, they'll debrief and discuss what they could have done differently.
So important.
And what they did. And hey, look at what you did well. So you're going to remember that, but always be trying to improve yourself, right? We always say, every day try to learn something new. Well, every flight learns something new, right?
Yeah.
I had the one in pre-PPL. It was like one of my first solo lessons, like maybe second or third time in the circuit. Way too task saturated, which now looking back, you're like, oh my gosh, I was flying a 172. Like, what do you got? You pull carb heat, like pull the power back and land, like. But at that time, there was so much going on. I've got to do all these checks. I got to remember all of this. Yeah. And I was at a very busy airport, and I'm trying to look for traffic, and I just lost track of my attitude and my airspeed. And stall warning horn started going off, and so I corrected, but I had looked down, and my airspeed was like in the low 50s, and then that airplane was like really dangerously close to a stall. But the one thing that I can say that I'm really thankful for is my instructor from day one, and it's the same thing I do with my students here, is anytime we hear the stall warning horn, is the nose goes down.
Yep.
It's not even look inside.
Yeah.
Nose goes down.
Right.
And then I can look inside.
Yeah.
right? And look for whatever, but get out of that right away, because we know we don't need power. We don't need any of that to break the stall.
Right.
We hear that stall warning horn and immediately that. And I've seen it many times where students, like, their natural instinct for some reason is to, like, almost pull back a little. And, or if I go airspeed and then they immediately pull the nose up, like, so it's breaking that habit of if we hear the stall warning horn, immediately the nose goes down. I know all of the instructors here, we kind of have that same philosophy, right?
Yeah.
And it's super important
Increase
because in that situation, if my instructor always, every time that stall warning horn goes, and we know in our airplanes, and same with the Cessnas, like, geez, it'll go off at 80 knots while we're climbing some days, right?
Yeah.
It's crazy.
Get a gust or whatever.
Right. It's crazy. But the instinct should be nose forward right away.
Yep.
And then, assess what's going on, right? And if my instructor hadn't done that, who knows? Maybe I would have ended up stalling. And I was actually about to turn base. So maybe I'd started that base turn, and could get yourself in a spin situation because now I'm putting rudder in and it's yaw aggravated or whatever, right? It's kind of that horror story that everyone hears about,
stall
right?
Speed increase with that bank.
Yeah, exactly. So, but for that instructor not engraving that into me, could have been totally different outcome.
Yeah.
It was a non-event, put the nose down, added power, went, oh geez, look what I just did.
Yeah.
Landed, moved on, learned from it, never happened again.
Right.
Sometimes those experiences, what it takes you to be hyper vigilant on your energy management and all that. But yeah, it's a very
really
real thing that can happen very easily. And I for one, it's easy to get into the trap of, oh, it won't happen to me. And then it happens, right?
Yeah. Yeah. And then that critical phase of flight, like you're about to start your approach, or you were in the downwind?
Downwind, about to turn base. Yeah. Late
yeah.
downwind.
So you're almost in that critical phase where you're descending, and it's important not to have that bias of, like, without even interpreting, you react.
Yeah.
But you react in a way that you've been trained. And in that situation, when you hear the stall horn, it's pitching forward to increase airspeed. But sometimes I'll call students out on their altitude. And without even looking, they'll start pitching up because they think
that's a very common one.
Maybe they're used to being low. So without even realizing, they react. Yeah. And then they realize that they did the opposite of what they should have been. They were too high.
So true.
And then they should have pitched forward. But before they even made the adjustment, they should have seen what was happening.
Yeah, stall warning is pretty much the only one that's, like, to me, an immediate reaction.
Yeah.
Other than that, like, look,
you can take it a step further and add power too, right? As you're doing
of course, so, yeah. Pretty much the other ones, like altitude and whatnot, we want to check and then correct, right?
Yeah.
So it's super important, and it'll be like that through their whole flying career, right? You go to the airlines and the pilot monitoring, when you say airspeed, altitude, glide slope, whatever, and then it's your job to correct. You don't have to shove the nose down and just think what you think what they were talking about. Take a look, assess, but, like, assertively make the change, make the fix, right? Fly the airplane, right?
Yeah.
So, but it's so critical though in that pre-PPL phase that we're kind of flying by the seat of our pants. We get behind the airplane really fast. So it's really important to have those good skills kind of ingrained in your head. So it's just subconscious, right? So
yeah, with my experience into London, it just shows me, like, when they say, like, pilot bias, and you're just, like, fixated on this is the scenario, and you can't get out of your train of thought to, like, think outside of it, because I just, like, thought that's how I need to join,
right? And
then I was instructed differently, and it kind of just threw things off a little bit, right? I know a lot of Mayday episodes, they discuss that pilot bias in terms of an engine failure happening, and they believe it's this engine, and they don't even consider any other options, right?
Right. Yeah. That's what we talked about, that, like, that foredeck, right? I know we've talked about it in the past, but it's just decision-making model, and all it is essentially gather all the facts, make a decision, and then execute it, and then reassess. Did that work? Did that fix our problem? No, it didn't fix our problem. Okay, now we need to go back to the beginning. Let's gather the facts that we have now, because things have changed. And let's assess our risk,
Mm-hmm.
and if make a decision, execute it, and then check it, right?
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
constantly going through that is how we now go through, because having a systematic way of doing things, like let's face it, all of us getting into flying, we like that kind of regiment, we checklist or whatever, right?
Yeah.
So having a way to fall back on to help you make those decisions is super important, right?
Yeah.
And if that's just a matter of, okay, we follow forward deck or whatever decision-making model you want to use, there's tons of them out there, is super important.
It is,
right?
Yeah.
And like we said, learning off of others, right? Chat with your friends. Aviation, like what drove me into aviation was the community. I love it. I love flying, but the community really bit me in, right? Like you don't have to necessarily know somebody. You can be at the airport and, you see an open hangar and you go and you chat with someone about their airplane. You can talk for hours and never even know them. Be two totally different walks of life, but you both have a similar passion of airplanes and you'll always talk about it. It's just one of those things that, like, if you don't love flying, love it a lot, you will not stick to it because it's so expensive and time consuming and it crushes you and physically and mentally. So it's just one of those things that unless you love it, you're not going to stick to it and you're not going to be around it.
Yeah, and that's like the question I asked you, I think, on the first podcast episode, where how do you think ego plays a role in one's ambition to get into aviation?
Right.
And it kind of weeds them out eventually.
Exactly.
If they're in they get involved in aviation for the wrong reason, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
And that's a big thing. Like, you gotta put your ego to the side. I know, even saying some of the things today kind of makes us vulnerable, but sometimes you got to put that to the side and to learn and make better decisions in the future or help others make better decisions, right? And I think that's the nice thing that we've built with our environment here is that people don't feel like they can't talk about it or that they're going to get ridiculed or made fun of or whatever. I think we've got a pretty positive environment here, especially with the instructors.
Yeah.
Well, we'll always take it in. We got our safety management system as well. So sometimes things will go through there and then we can sit down and discuss the situation, right? I'll sit down with a student and, hey, this is what happened. And, maybe it's a loss of separation, maybe it's whatever.
Yeah.
And how to... Yeah, and how to fix that for the future, right? And normally it's not a matter of, oh, this person is unable to fly airplanes, they don't have the mental aptitude to do it. It's never that. It's just you've never experienced this before, and now you have, and now the next time that happens, your brain's just gonna go, I've done this before. Yeah, this is what I should do.
Right.
Don't do that.
Yeah, exactly. I have a couple of scenarios that come to mind as we were talking. Like one was a rejected takeoff, and it was something simple. It was the oil flap opened and on takeoff, and we could have just continued. It wasn't something that we had to abort takeoff. But I wanted to practice that procedure with the student because we always brief it and we don't usually go through the actual flying of it. And he just repeated it, and then as I said, reject takeoff. He's like, reject takeoff, and then close the throttle right away.
Right.
And he didn't realize why, but I said, the oil door was open or whatever. So, that was a good one. And then another one, I was teaching a student takeoffs and landings, and we had just touched down, and then the student, they messed up the landing or whatever, and they asked a question as we were on the runway about to reconfigure for takeoff again. And I was just briefly summarizing it, but basically trying to get them to keep going, fly, to take off again. And there was a busy circuit, somebody was coming in behind us, and we had waited too long. The person was on approach, and so we applied power, and it was a rushed scenario. So I said, just hurry up and we'll make the call after once we're airborne.
Right.
And so then we applied power, started rolling, and then the aircraft behind us they called their overshoot, so we had to hold. So again, we had to reject takeoff.
Right.
And that was, something I should have maybe caught a little sooner, and then realized, we'll debrief that landing once we're back airborne again, when I can take control and you don't have to focus on flying. But just having that mental map of where everybody is at certain points in the circuit, especially in that kind of vulnerable environment. To know okay, I have a certain amount of time. If not, I'm going to hold short until they conduct their overshoot, so that's not a loss of separation with that. Right? Yeah. So that's another.
It's an easy thing to happen, especially in that situation, because you can't see anybody behind you. It's not like we got rear view mirrors. You're talking. about, the lesson or what happened and what have you. And then now you're going and you don't really know who's right behind you, right? Until sometimes it's too late. But yeah, it's going through those rejected takeoffs. I love going through with students if it's a quiet day. And we have such a long runway here, is getting them to take off, get airborne, pull the throttle and come back in and land.
Yeah.
Right. It's such valuable experience because if you've never done it, it's really nerve-wracking, right? To pull power and land back on the runway. But even just doing it once, well, then now they know that, oh, okay, so at this point, I can still land. Okay, at this point, now I've got to continue and land in a field or land whatever in the event of a failure, right? Obviously, that's the biggest difference between like a PPL student and a CPL student, right? Is just always having that out and always constantly thinking about, okay, can I come back to the runway? Yes, I can. Now I can't. Now I need to do this. Now I need to do that, right? So just trying to build that from day one. That's why I always push that with our students right from the beginning, as it's only going to make you better, right?
Yeah.
So
have you had any scenarios with landings that?
Landings, not really. Like you're saying, myself personally.
Personal, yeah, flight.
No, personally, I've had so another airplane that I fly is like prone to porpoising. So I have had like a situation where when I first started flying it that we porpoised, which is just an immediate overshoot in that airplane. Well, in any airplane, but nothing too critical.
What about like a deflated tire or something?
Oh, okay, yes. I see what you did. You dug that one out. Okay, yeah. So recently landed. We didn't really get too much of a synopsis as to what had happened. Yeah. But yeah, there was obviously had some sort of either whether the brake seized or whether someone was on the brakes inadvertently. Who knows? The tire was a little bit older. Yeah. And it burst on landing. So that's a weird feeling. I've never had that before. Right. Yeah. Actually, at first, my initial reaction was, "What was that?" Yeah, and then it was like, "Oh, that was a burst tire," because you immediately
kind of feel.
Yeah, but you know what? In that airplane, because I was in the multi, that airplane, even just with a crosswind, can feel like you're a little bit angled. Yeah. If you don't have good crosswind input in, so it wasn't too abnormal in that sense, but then you could hear it. Yeah. No, it was afterwards. Like you'd hear like the kind of the
chugging.
Exactly. Yeah. And the biggest thing there, just maintain center line and then get shut down and get a tow and get out of there.
Was it easy enough to maintain center line?
Wasn't too bad. We were slightly off to the right. Okay. But because I didn't want to push too much on it, we were in a safe spot.
Yeah. And you just stopped completely on
just stopped. Yeah, just stopped.
That's important to know.
Yeah,
not to continue to.
Yeah, you don't want to, because you can cause a lot of damage to the brake system. Yeah, exactly. So to try to minimize it, just stop there and get a tow. And the guys and girls at the airport here are fantastic. They were out there. I don't know. They were faster than calling an emergency service. It was amazing.
They're like a NASCAR pit crew.
Yeah, they were great. They had that thing on a dolly and out of there within seconds. Yeah. But yeah,
experience though, right?
Yeah, exactly.
I mean, it does happen.
It happens.
Happened to one of my students. I think in Kitchener, actually, not too long ago.
Oh yeah. It happens, and it could just
be the nose wheel, actually.
Oh, interesting. Yeah. Yeah, it's one of those things that can happen, and like I said, our culture here is it's okay to talk about it and
definitely
and learn from it, right?
Yeah.
So awesome, great. Well, geez, now that we have completely made ourselves vulnerable and no one's going to trust us anymore with flying, but hopefully people can learn a little bit about from what we've experienced. Exactly. Some of the other instructors have gone through as well here, which the biggest thing is just becoming better pilots. And learning from whether it be our mistakes or other people's mistakes, because none of us are perfect. As much as I know you're perfect, I'm not.
Definitely not.
And learning from those mistakes is what's gonna to ultimately make us better pilots. Yeah. And at the very least, have good stories to talk about.
Can you tie that to the yellow card before we end this? Because we brief emergencies
every flight. Yeah,
before we go up, right?
So
and it just happened that on this particular day, I gave the student alternator failure.
Okay, yeah.
And guess what happened as soon as they took off?
Right.
All on their cross country.
Yeah, right.
They had an alternator failure and they
Yeah.
had to turn back, right?
Yeah.
So, it's just kind of like absurd that was the one I gave them. And that
Yeah, that's
is
funny.
exactly
Funny how
what
the universe
happened.
works that way. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Cool. No, that's awesome. I
Yeah.
appreciate it. And again, hopefully you learned something about some of our experiences today and take that into your flying.
Yeah, and share those experiences of your own with us on the Instagram.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
I'd love to hear it.
Send them in.
I promise I won't laugh at anybody
Yeah.
and we'll all learn from it.
Awesome.
All right. Thanks.
All right, thank you.